Hi, welcome back to Let's Cook, where I am doing some of my favorite foods, or comfort food. So for today's menu, we are making a peasant loaf. We're making our own bread. Then we're making an Italian potato soup and chicken en gras, which is actually a Hungarian-style chicken that is made with paprika. Out of this world. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make bread. And Americans like their bread. We eat, on the average, 60 pounds of bread a year. So if you really want to kind of slow down, make your own bread. So I'm going to show you a very easy recipe to make bread. First thing I'm going to do is I have a little bit of warm water here. And in this warm water, I'm going to use 1 packet of yeast. And I'm just going to put the yeast in there, let that yeast start to dissolve, and let it start to go to work there. So we just want that to foam up a little bit. So while that starts to work, and you can, a lot of times you'll get bubbles from the yeast, but you can also smell the yeast kind of starting to work as well. So we'll let that start to work up a little bit. Now I have here, you're going to use 6.5 to 7.5 cups of flour. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this into my machine right here. I'm not even going to sift this, because we're going to work this on the machine relatively vigorously to get it to come together. To this now, I'm going to add just a pinch of salt. Okay, so we need a pinch of salt here, a little bit more. And what I'll do is I'll put the machine up here, and then I'm just going to let this just start to work and mix that salt in there. Now, the other ingredients, I have an egg here, and I also have some melted butter. So the only other thing I need is I do need about 2 to 2.5 cups of milk for this. So we're just going to take this, we'll get a pot on the stove, and we're going to scald the milk. Now, by scalding the milk, what that will do is scalding the milk will warm up the dough itself so that it won't take that long to rise, because yeast needs a warm environment to really rise and work into the bread. And of course, we're going to use honey. So I'm just going to let this pan get a little hot, and then I'm just going to put the milk in there and let that scald. So if I just feel here, just see how it starts to just steam right away? This is scalding milk. So here, there's 1 cup, there's 2 cups, there's a 1/2 cup right there. So now I've scalded the milk. To that milk now, I'm going, because the milk's already warm, add a little bit of honey here. Good. And we'll add our egg to this as well. Now, the milk is not hot enough to cook the egg, but we're going to add our egg. And all we're going to do with this now is just break that egg up in there. Make sure the honey is well mixed in there. The honey is going to work with the yeast and kind of get this dough to rise. So now, turn down my machine, nice and slow. I'm just going to drizzle this into the machine. Get all that liquid in there. Now you'll notice I haven't put the yeast in there yet. So let this start to mix. Right in the bottom, you can see that it's starting to form a little bit of a well, and it's starting to mix that flour in there. Pick this up just a little bit here. Now, my yeast is dissolved. I'm going to go ahead and add the yeast with the warm water. Whenever you're making a bread, part of the process of developing the elasticity or the gluten in the flour is a working process of it. That's why we're using a dough hook on this and not a paddle. The dough hook kind of stretches it and gets it to work. So let's hear. Okay. You can see it's starting to pick it up here. I'm just going to pick this up a little bit here so that the dough comes together. The dough should come clean from the sides of the bowl when this is good. And you don't want to see that happen. I went a little too fast. That's okay. I lost a little flour. This is kind of the story of my life. You lose a little flour. But we're going to let this dough knead just till it comes clean from the sides here. Now, if it appears where it's a little too dry, I can always add a little bit more flour to this, but this I think is just about perfect here, where I'm just going to beat this a little bit more until it just comes together. Once the dough comes together, then I can go ahead and knead it. Whoops. Okay, this is almost together here. There's only one thing I really need to do, but I can actually do that on the board, so I'll show you how to do that on the board. This is going to, the sides of the bowl are clean now. The dough is almost totally together. So now, just one more half a minute here. Good. Going to come over here now. Take this off of the hook here. Take a little bench flour right here. I'm also going to flour my hand. Take the dough out of this. It's nice and sticky here. And I'm just going to start to knead this. Now when I knead this, I'm going to keep turning this and turning this and turning it and stretching it as I go. The longer I do this, you see how smooth the surface is already getting here? Very smooth. I'm going to keep kneading this till it's very well mixed and very smooth. I need to do this for about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe even a little longer, so we're going to take a little break, and then when we come back, I'm going to show you how you finish this bread. Don't go anywhere. It's Comfort Food today on Let's Cook. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Let's Cook, where we are doing comfort food. Now, I started the bread in the last segment, and we went to break. And when we went to break and you watched that commercial, I just stayed here and kneaded the dough. We didn't stop tape or anything, so this is actual time. And you can see now how nice and smooth my dough is. It looks beautiful. And at the bottom here, I need to seal this. So a way of sealing it is to take the dough and with your hand, and you kind of go this way so that you form a nice, see how I'm forming the little bowl there on the bottom? Then I come over like this. This way it's really nicely sealed so that as the yeast starts to work and produce the carbon dioxide, it'll stay inside the bread. So now we're going to proof this. So I just take a little bit of oil here in the bottom of the bowl. I take the dough this way to coat the top. I turn it over now, making sure it's well coated with the oil, but it's not swimming in the oil. Then we cover this with plastic wrap and you allow it to proof. It's going to proof, it's going to come up, it's going to be about this size right here. So you can see it's almost doubled in size here from the original one. So we have, it's proof. Now, when that happens, you punch the dough down again and you let it rise a second time. If you don't do that, it's going to be yeasty. Then to bake this, okay, now this is already risen twice. To bake this now, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the dough like this. Then I'll take a sheet pan this way onto the sheet pan so it doesn't stick. I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil. I could use flour or cornmeal too, but I put that on there. Then we'll put our dough, our bread right on here. Then with a knife now, nice sharp knife, in the top of the dough here, I'm going to make some cuts. Just going to cut through the dough this way. Just barely going in, about 1/8 of an inch. You need a sharp knife to do that. Then we'll take some water. This is going to produce a nice crust on the dough, and it's also going to allow the salt that I'm going to sprinkle on top of this to adhere to the dough. So I just get this nicely brushed with water. Now if you wanted more of a color, you could definitely use egg wash, but I'm using water on this. Then I'm going to take kosher salt, coarse kosher salt, or sea salt, sprinkle this on top. I'm going to bake this in a 375-degree oven for 40 to 50 minutes based on how well your oven is. Now, when it comes out, this is what it looks like. Okay? And by the way, after you do this, like this, you need to let it rise up just a little bit. But see this here now? Just to show you what you need to look for. Let me get this one in the oven. When you want to test the bread to make sure it's done, you're going to knock it, and it's going to have a nice hollow sound to it. Okay? Doesn't that look fantastic? You know, it's pretty interesting. There's a bread story here. Legend has it that in 2600 BC, an Egyptian slave was making flour and water cakes. He fell asleep that night. The fire went out. Being in a warm environment overnight, the dough actually rose and formed bread. Hence, we have bread. And that's because the way that can happen is there's always natural yeast in the air that can, as we breathe, we're actually breathing yeast. Now, the yeast we use nowadays to make our breads is a little bit more refined. Interesting story. But right now, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, I'm making more comfort food, an Italian potato soup. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Let's Cook, where we are making comfort food. Now we have this terrific bread that we made right here, this wonderful peasant loaf. Now, what's going to go better with a delicious loaf of bread than a good soup? This is an Italian potato soup. So, what I'm doing right here in the bottom of the pan here is I have some spicy Italian sausage. You can use sweet. And all I'm doing is rendering this sausage a little bit, just to cook it out in a little bit of olive oil. To this now, I'm going to go ahead and add the onions. Now the onions should be small diced because they should appear in the soup. So I'm just going to take the onion here, take this onion and small dice it a little bit. So see, nice small dice on the onion here. Okay, now by the way, whenever you're making a soup, it's usually equal quantities so that if I have this much onion, I would use that much carrot, that much celery if I was using it. But this soup is so simple because all it has in it is onions and garlic as far as the aromatics are concerned. So I just sliced my garlic there. I'm going to add this to the pan now. And if it gets a little dry like this is right here, a little too dry, it was very lean sausage, hit it with a splash of olive oil. Just a little splash of olive oil there. Beautiful. Okay, so I let that start to sweat off a little bit, and then I need to cut my potatoes. Now, the potatoes do not have to be a perfect cut, but this is not a pureed soup, so we do want the potatoes to cook evenly. Based on the size spoon you're using and how big, how hungry the people are going to be, you will lose a little bit of potato. So what I'll do is I'm going to cut the potato very simply here again. Remember, this is comfort food. Then with the potato, instead of dicing it, I'm just going to slice it really thin. See how thin we're slicing it? That way it'll break up a little bit. It will release the starch nicely into the soup. And it's also going to save me time in the kitchen. Also, if you're doing this with your kids, you can have them help you. But see how easy it is to cut the potato that way? Let me get one more potato in here. Beautiful. God. I still, when I'm making food like this, I still get really excited about just making a simple meal like this where we have real simple ingredients, you know, spinach, potatoes, sausage, and then to finish this soup, which is really nice, what we do is we take and we actually poach an egg in the soup itself and serve that with the soup, which makes it actually a meal in itself, and then we flavor it with a little bit of Romano cheese. Out of this world. Okie doke. So, I'm going to get this in here right here. Get our potatoes in there. Now the potatoes will oxidize, so once you put the potatoes in with the garlic and the onions, you add your stock. And all we're going to do now is allow this to simmer. Cook those potatoes through. There's a lot of flavoring in that sausage, so that's really going to flavor it up. And then we just have to finish it with the parsley, the herbs, the eggs, and a little bit of the grated cheese. Okay, so we have our soup going. We're going to show you the soup before the end of the show, but we have to take a break right now. But don't go anywhere, because for our comfort food, I have a chicken en gras that we're going to be making. It's comfort food today on Let's Cook. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Let's Cook and Comfort Food. Now, in the last segment, we started our soup, and our soup is almost done. And I have my soup simmering here, so you can see how nice this looks with the sausage and the potatoes. So now what I need to do is I need to cook an egg in the soup. So I'll make sure that my soup is just barely simmering like this, and then we'll take the egg. We crack the egg separately in a small bowl this way, and then I'm just going to drop it right into the soup right there. Now, once I've done this, I can't stir the soup, because with every bowl of soup that I serve, I'm going to give them an egg. So I'll just do 3 eggs in here right now. So we just kind of drop the egg in there and let that egg poach right in the soup. So we have our egg in there. That's good to go. We'll be coming back to that now. For the next item, our chicken en gras. This is a Hungarian-style chicken. En gras, H-O-N-G-R-O-I-S-E, actually means in Hungary in French. So we're a Hungarian style. So what I've done here is I've taken some chicken, just a chicken, and what I did is I seasoned it with salt and pepper, I floured it, shook off that, and I browned it. Now here's the key to this. You need to use good paprika when you're making this. So I'll remove my chicken now. After I brown the chicken, I just remove the chicken here, and then into the pan, once I've removed the chicken, I'm going to add some butter. So I add the butter to the pan here, and just let that start to melt. I'll get my chicken out of the way here, and then once the butter is melted, this is so good. Once the butter is melted here, I'm just going to go ahead and add my onions. The onions are finely chopped, and what we do with the onions is we just sweat those onions off. Beautiful. So we're just going to make sure that they start to change color a little bit. So I sweat the onions off, and now I'll add my paprika. Right in with the onions, correct? So we just go ahead and we add our paprika to this, cook that paprika. Beautiful. Now, you're going to get a certain aroma from the paprika cooking. This is beautiful. So cook this for a couple of minutes, making sure you don't burn it though. Now, going to go ahead, add my white wine to this. About 4 ounces of white wine. And I'm going to add my chicken stock to this. All we do now is take this, and we're going to add enough stock to this so that it'll cover our chicken. So I stir this around, making sure all of the flavors that are stuck to the bottom of the pan, those are the juices of the fond, are released. Then I return my chicken back to the pan, making sure that it's all sitting nicely in the sauce, covered about 2/3 of the way up with the liquid. I need just a little bit more stock in here, and I allow this to simmer. Now I can simmer this either in the oven, or I can go ahead and simmer this on the stove top. But this is what it looks like once it's totally done, where the chicken is coming delicious, nice and tender away from the bone. So here we go. So now to finish my sauce, I remove the chicken here. Just remove my chicken here. Beautiful. And now I'm going to go ahead and finish the sauce. Now to finish the sauce, I'm going to add a little bit of sour cream to the sauce. So we're just going to go right over that. So to finish the sauce here, look, I just stir this around here now. And we'll take just a little bit of sour cream here just to finish this with. And by the way, you can strain the sauce, but you really don't have to. This is comfort food. We want it to be real nice and easy and simple. So now I'll just take my sour cream, get my sour cream in there. Can't bring my sauce back up to a boil once I do this. Doesn't that look fantastic? Out of this world. So here we go. Let's put our sauce over top of our chicken right here. Okay, doesn't that look great? Okay, now, let me just go ahead and go over exactly how we make the chicken here, okay? The first thing that we did is we took our chicken and we seasoned it with salt and pepper, dredged it in flour, and we browned it in a little bit of olive oil. Then we took the chicken out once it was browned, and we added butter to the pan. After we melted the butter, we added onion, sauteed that for a little bit. Then we added the paprika, 4 ounces of white wine. Then we added 2 cups of chicken stock, brought that up to a simmer. You need to season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. Let that simmer until it's fork tender and cooked through. Remove the chicken and finish it with the sour cream. Very delicious, easy item. And you can also, if you'd like, you can always go to the website, World Wide Web, cn8.tv, and get these recipes. Okay, let's go over here and look at our eggs here. Remember, this is our potato sausage soup with the egg. So now, this is really out of this world. So now I'm just going to pick up the egg right here, right in the middle of the dish there. Then we'll take the broth right here, ladle the broth right around this. Doesn't that look terrific? Then to finish this, grate a little bit of cheese on top of this. Oh. I love comfort food because it just should do that. It should just relax you. So thank you for watching Let's Cook today, where we did some of my most favorite, delicious, easy to prepare comfort foods. You have a great day, and remember, food should be comfortable.